Are you sick of government lackeys who say you didn't build that? Are you tired of elitists who think you need a government permission slip for everything? Everything you do is an A to B conversation, and the government should see their way out of it. Create true free markets by adopting the BIPCOT No Government License. The BIPCOT No Gov license allows use or modification of any product, service, or software except by governments or government agents. Go to bipcot.org. That's Bravo, India, Papa, Charlie, Oscar, Tango.org.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Peaceful Anarchism on the Voluntary Virtues Network on theseedsofliberty.com and theconsciousresistance.com. So today we have Shane Buell coming in from Cincinnati, Ohio. Actually, before we start, I'm going to pass it over to Shane for the BIPCOT message.
As always, this show is covered by the BIPCOT No Government License. This allows reuse by anyone except governments and the agents or affiliates thereof. To learn more about this, go to bipcot.org.
Awesome. See, Jeremy always hassles me, on the shows and the Seeds of Liberty because I messed that up. But awesome. So he's coming in from Cincinnati, Ohio. He's a voluntarist, agorist, and individualist, and he's the admin on a few Facebook pages, including the Pullout Method, the Iconoclast, Autonomous, Anarcho-Consciousness, Psychologic Anarchist, Living in Modern Times, Anarchy is for Lovers, Counter-Establishment Economics, Self-Ownership, and Non-Aggression Principle. And you can find him on Facebook under his name, Shane Buell, B-U-E-L-L. And we're going to talk a little bit about his history, how he came to voluntarism, what books and podcasts influenced him along the way, and also about relationalism and compassionate anarchy. Because that is, that's more of Sterling Lujan's style, and I really do identify with that much more as well, and also perhaps some of his pages that he likes, that he feels more closer to his heart. Anarcho-Consciousness, Psychological Anarchist, Pullout Method, and his very new one, Autonomous. So, Shane, thanks a lot for coming on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, no problem. We've been Facebook friends for a while, and I think you came on the Seeds of Liberty a while ago, and we got to talk a little bit there. That was pretty cool. And it's always nice to have these conversations with people on Facebook that you're talking to through, texting and chatting, but it's a little bit different when you're talking to them face-to-face like this. So, so I love it.
Yeah. Seeds of Liberty was kind of a big influence on me, and I've been on there a couple times now. The first time was to kind of give my testament of how much of an influence they were on me. And you happened to not be there that week, I think. So, or no, I think you were.
Yeah. The first week I was there.
But then my second time on, you weren't there. And so this is actually great to get a chance to talk to you one-on-one, because you, after all, were my red pill to anarchy. Wow. I believe at the time when I first friended you, I don't know if you friended me or if I friended you, but it was right around the time that I first heard of anarchy and looked into it. But you were my first anarchist friend.
Wow.
And
That's awesome.
Yeah, you were my first one. And now I've got over 1,000 anarchist friends.
I know, isn't it amazing?
And probably 100 that are on the fence. So.
Oh, on the fence. I thought you said on the feds. The feds list.
Oh, no. Well, there's probably a few of those.
We're probably all on the feds list. That's okay.
There's probably a few of those too.
Yeah.
But I guess, I started a long time ago. I had about 3 or 4, maybe 500 just anarchist friends on Facebook, and I didn't really accept friend requests from people who weren't necessarily anarchists. I would check out their profiles. But now I'm kind of, opening up and friending a lot more different types of crowds, like conspiracy theorists and truthers and, the spiritual community. And they're all kind of clashing on the newsfeed a little bit, but they learn from each other even when I'm not there, So I'll come back and I'll notice that someone who was like a Hillary fan, who I friended, a Hillary friend supporter, who went from Hillary to Stein to Johnson to anarchist, in a matter of, I don't know. Because you remember when Bernie first publicly gave his support to Hillary.
Right.
all the Bernie supporters were kind of jaded at that point,
Yeah.
and a lot of people had said, "Hey, this is our chance to win over a lot of Bernie supporters." And I met one of them in real life who is now identifies as an anarchist.
Wow.
And I met one online who was a real big Hillary supporter who actually went the entire route in about 6 weeks instead of 6 months.
Whoa.
So that was really impressive. And a lot of that happened without me even really being at the keyboard, because a lot of stuff I might have liked when I was away on my mobile or something will show up in their feeds, and then they might comment on something, and then you know how anarchists are. If they see something wrong with a comment, they'll jump in. And so I would come back and see all of this discussion that took place, and they would win over people without me even being there, you know?
Right.
So I think that's really nice to see how the progression that a lot of people from different groups can come to anarchy.
Yeah, it's it's awesome, Facebook, because it's such a great networking tool, and I know a lot of people don't like it because it's like what the Mark Zuckerberg, has some kind of ties with, I don't know, CIA or the FBI, and sharing information. They can see everything. And at one point I was of the mindset, when I was learning about this stuff, like, oh man, they can track everything. They can listen to our phone calls. They can view our text messages, read our emails, and they can turn on your microphone even if your phone's off, and listen to your conversations. And at one point, I'm like, shoot, what am I gonna do? I gotta, put a piece of tape over my over my camera, my laptop. I was using this I don't know if you know the search engine called Start Page. Have you heard about that? It's alternative to Google, and it's like completely like safe. They don't store any cookies. They after you use it, it's an app, after you use it, all the searches completely erase and restart over. Nothing gets saved, and so I was using that for a while, and then after a while I'm just like, it doesn't even matter anymore. If like Larkin Rose, the way he puts it is like, I want government agents to read my stuff. I was like, I wonder how many government agents I converted just by them reading my stuff. And so I really stopped caring, and I'm like, hey, put everything out now. Everything is out there. Like, you can read anything of what I've said and what I've written. And I think it's more powerful that we speak from conviction, and that we're not cowering in the shadows and trembling because of what somebody in power might have heard. And I think that's a stance that a lot of us need to take more of, right? Go ahead.
I agree. I actually came to anarchy from the whole truther conspiracy theorist movement, and saw there was a lot of built-up paranoia that I brought with me. And for the first year or so of identifying as an anarchist, I was still not accepting any friend requests that weren't like obviously real anarchists, and I still wouldn't even share anything publicly, hardly ever, But now everything I share is public. All the friends, all the family, they all get to see that stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But it's probably about a year ago, well, maybe 2 now, but it was a year ago when I got in my accident. I decided to really start branching out and connecting with the anarchist community, and I started sharing publicly and accepting all the friend requests, because I just wasn't scared anymore.
Right. Yeah. I think. Yeah. I remember there was one post somebody did, and they were asking, what is your requirements for accepting a friend request? And some people were like, 50 mutual friends, 30 mutual friends, 20, 10, right? And Luis Mises, I'll never forget what he said. He's like, I don't have any requirements. I'm easy.
Yeah, I love Luis Fernando Mises. He's the Emancipated Human is one of my favorite pages, and if I could ever admin one more page, it would probably be that one. But I just probably don't have the time for it.
Yeah, he's awesome. I love his style. He's really open. He's gentle. He's sensitive. He's relaxed. He keeps it humorous, which is very important. The way he writes and talks, he keeps it real. And I try to use that in my show as well. When I talk to people, I think it's so important that we use humor in what we do and not get too serious about this stuff. Because in the end, we should be enjoying life and teaching people that, that's why we love freedom we love liberty, is because you can enjoy life more.
Yeah.
So if you're angry at someone for believing a certain thing, that's not going to present well for the philosophy that you're trying to describe.
Right. And ultimately, we control our reactions to things, including our emotional reactions. We don't just need to automatically react to a stimulus in a pre-programmed or predictable way. We need to like pause and think about, well, is there a better course of action, or, why am I reacting this way? And you can kind of diffuse a lot of reactions that way.
Oh yeah, definitely. So I know you mentioned my show, or was it what I was posting on Facebook? That's what you were seeing.
All right. Well, back when I was a fresh baby anarchist, this guy Danilo, he was sharing all kinds of really radical stuff, and I thought I was into liberty, because I used to listen to Alex Jones, and he got me into the Ron Paul thing, and Ron Paul got me to see it from the inside how corrupt it really is. Because I was a delegate for Ron Paul in 2008, right? And then again in 2012, but yeah, it was obvious at that point. So anyway, I came to, long story short, me and Danilo became friends, and I thought my stuff was radical, but a lot of stuff you were sharing on Facebook was way more radical. And so, but it really all made sense. I'm a person of logic, and logic is probably what will ultimately win me over the most. And the philosophy of liberty has that. It's consistently logical and ethical and moral and all of that. And I was like, this is much better than what I was into at the time, which was minarchism.
Yeah. And what about any books or authors that you've read that have influenced you?
Well, I did read a lot of Ron Paul, and Ron Paul, he read a lot of economists like Milton Friedman and stuff, but he also recommended Mises, right? So then I got on Mises.org, and I discovered Hayek and Rothbard and a little bit of Bastiat, and I was like, okay, well, this is making a lot more sense to me now. But then once I got to the New Libertarian Manifesto by Samuel Edward Konkin, see, Rothbard, I think, had it pretty close to right, but Konkin just blew me away. Yeah. So those are some of my favorites, actually.
Can you go into a little bit of what Konkin said? Because I have not read that. And I remember Derek Bros, I was talking to him, and he was saying that influenced him a lot as well.
Yeah. I'm the type that hardly ever finishes a book, but like it seems like I somehow find some of the better parts of any book that I pick up. And Samuel Edward Konkin, he wrote the New Libertarian Manifesto, which is basically about agorism and counter-economics. And I wish I had like a handy quote that Benjamin always links. But it's really about, I can't quote him exactly, so I'll paraphrase. The free market and underground economy, starving the state and becoming like you can replace anything that the state has a monopoly of force on, can be competed out of business, basically.
Right.
And I really wish I had this really good Konkin quote handy, but I don't. So I'm just, paraphrase when I say feed the market, starve the state.
Right.
And that's one thing I kind of mention a lot on the pullout method. The pullout method was created by Mandy Silver, and I help admin that page. And it's kind of like, it's about agorism, but I say instead of smashing the state or changing it from the inside, we can use the free market to avoid the state and go around it. And the free market, like in a lot of cases, like when it comes to security or who will build the roads, the free market has those solutions, and they're probably already being used somewhere if we just, look hard enough to find out where this is going on. Like Cell 411 is a big thing. Like I think it should be a lot bigger. We can build on that,
Yeah. The it's interesting, the terminology that we use to describe what we do. Like some people say, I want to abolish the state, right, or abolish government,
right.
or like you said, smash the state. And I just don't see it like that. Statism is a state of mind, right? So the state is really It's just men and women, as Mark Stevens says, men and women with guns forcing you to pay them. That's it. Men and women who believe that they have an exemption from the universal laws of morality that we are all subject to. And I think when we begin to apply morality to everyone without exception, there is no way that the state can exist at all. And so you don't have to abolish anything. The way Larkin Rose says it, it's like we must abolish Santa Claus, we must abolish the Easter Bunny, but it doesn't exist in the first place.
Oh, right.
It's like if somebody says we should abolish Santa Claus, and somebody's like, well, how are the kids gonna get presents? You know, so there's nothing to abolish. All right, it's just these people that we think after they go through these magical rituals, they all of a sudden have the right to steal and call taxation, or to kidnap and call the war on drugs, or to murder people in foreign lands and call it the war on terror. Right? It's still the same actions, but with people with special costumes and badges, and we think that they're special people that have special immunities towards all these, universal laws. I think it is attractive to more people is instead of, people always criticizing anarchists, I think, for saying, you people just want to tear everything down. You want to tear down the system and all the structure and the public schools and the tax system, everything. You want to tear it all down. But what are you going to replace it with? Right? What are your solutions? I know what you hate, but what do you like? So that's why it's important for us to say what we love. We love peace, freedom, compassion, kindness. We're gentle people. There is no such thing as coerced compassion, as in the welfare state, right? If you either give or you don't give, but if you're forced to give, that's not called compassion. That's just called coercion.
Right. Yeah, as far as the whole abolish thing goes, let's see, like I think of abolish as to make illegal, or so if you made government illegal, like there ought to be a law that there should be no laws,
Yeah, right.
And I saw a meme recently that kind of summed it up really well. That's when someone says they want to abolish government and how will they do it, the response to that question was something like the same way we abolished Blockbuster Video.
Yeah, exactly.
Basically, the free market just came along and made it obsolete.
Exactly.
And that's how we have Netflix now.
Exactly.
And so if the free market is allowed to function, I think a lot of stuff will come along and replace the monopolized services the government, has right now. And as far as these men and women with the belief in authority, like there are those who believe they have authority, which was granted to them by those who may or may not have even consented to it. Mm-hmm. And then there's those of us who buy into that belief. And so it's the belief in illegitimate authority, I think, that perpetuates a lot of that myth of those who have it and those who must follow it. Some people feel compelled to comply. And I don't buy into that. And I don't have the fear of authority either. I think the fear of and the belief in authority are two of the big hurdles that you can get over rather quickly, and everything else is kind of small stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Another interesting argument you remind me of was when we talk about anarchism and people are like, oh, that's all nice, but there's always going to be somebody in control, and it's always going to be somebody in power. It doesn't matter if you're an anarchist or what, so so basically they're taken for granted that there's these power structures, right? The state where somebody can just hold the reins of power. And so I think the idea to consider is, what is power? Where does power originate, right? Is it really on the throne, going through these magical rituals? Is that where power originates? No, I think power originates from the people who believe that they are in power. They give, just like you said, they grant them this authority over us mere mortals, regular individuals who don't have that exemption. So, people in the military who, believe that they must obey orders regardless if it conflicts with their own morality. Same thing with law enforcement. They believe they must obey orders regardless of the morality of the laws. So that's, where power originates. It originates in the people. They create these monsters that we're all taught to fear. It's like Hitler killed 6 million Jews. No, he didn't.
No,
it was
the
didn't. Order followers that killed.
Right.
Hitler
exactly.
killed a few, maybe.
Yeah, it's the order follower who's responsible and culpable for their own actions, not the order giver. And if it wasn't for this belief in illegitimate authority, the order followers need not comply, and
right.
they would know that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
which is basically the fundamental theme of your pull-out method page, right?
Well, yeah, the pull-out method is basically about not complying, and finding the alternatives. It's, agorism, but
So
not
basically,
necessarily.
you're saying it's not an anti-fertility method, right?
No, it is not that.
Nice. Also an anti-fertility. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. Um, yeah, the pull-out method is more about agorist practices and principles, and sometimes, just perspectives. You know, I haven't been active with it lately. Maybe Mandy has, but pretty soon here, now that Mercury retrograde's over,
Mhm.
I don't know if you know about that. It's an astrological phenomenon.
Right.
But anyway, now that that's over, I should be able to have the time, energy, and focus to get back to, you know, doing the things I plan to do with social media.
Yeah, actually, that brings up another point. So you focus more on, with your anarchism and your voluntarism, you focus more on the psychological, the spiritual aspect of it. So how do you see that as it relates to anarchism in your mind?
All right. Well, I kind of came to the liberty movement from a strange direction. I used to be a conspiracy theorist, truther, and I was really into spirituality and stuff. Um, And I always thought that, freedom or liberty was like a spiritual thing. As long as we were free in our spirit, then we could be free in every other way. But I also studied psychology in college, and I learned that, well, there's a lot of ways to be manipulated there and ways that we could work our way out of this mental cage that we put ourselves in with our thinking. And then when I found, anarchy and philosophy, philosophy gave me a kind of moral compass that I never knew existed. And when you combine that with psychology and spirituality, it's just kind of, it's really synergistic. And so I think that you almost need to combine the three to be truly free in body, mind, and spirit. Um, there's a lot of anarchists who they don't, and it's okay that they're not really open to subtle things, and I'm fine with that. But I think there's a lot of overlap between the different communities, and so the different activist spheres of influence, I think, can kind of unify a little bit with what they have in common instead of nitpicking over, the things they disagree on. So when it comes to compassion to anarchy and relationalism, I these are some ideas that I had like a long time ago, but never really put into words. And then when Sterling Lujan came along, I was like, this is exactly what I've been thinking, but haven't actually said. And so relationalism is all about relating to the other person's point of view. And we all come from somewhere. And if we came from, say, that direction, then we can truly relate to where they're coming from and meet them in the middle in a way. And so we don't necessarily debate to try to win arguments. We debate to try to communicate like our position, but in the process of doing so, we should also understand their position. And once you do that, you kind of disarm any of the reactions that people tend to have when it comes to anarchy. So that way you don't trigger their feels or rustle their jimmies, and you can actually have a heart-to-heart conversation with somebody and plant that seed of thought that will eventually lead them on their own path to discovering liberty and freedom.
Yes, definitely. It's definitely the method that I have been using, and when I met Sterling, it was awesome to see that he was promoting a similar method of trying to talk to somebody and diffuse their emotional tension. And when I tell people, most of the people that I meet are homeschooling parents because I'm with my kids. We go out to different events and groups and classes, and so I meet various parents, and so so they're already skeptical of this of government schools. So I have a little bit of an advantage there. And so it's kind of easy to just give them that little extra push, I'm like, if you don't think the government can do schools right, what else do you think they can't do? So so I use that a lot, and I try to back into my, the name of my website and podcast. So I kind of tell them, they ask me, so what do you talk about on your website? I'm like, oh, well, I talk about morality. And I talk about voluntarism, this philosophy called voluntarism and agorism, and homeschooling and peaceful parenting, and attachment parenting and unschooling. and precious metals, the monetary system, the Federal Reserve. So most of the time, I don't even mention anarchy, and then they ask more, and then I'm like, well, what's voluntarism? Well, just advocating for voluntary interaction between peaceful people. Like, do you advocate that? Well, yeah, of course. And kind of backing into the idea of anarchy. And yeah, go ahead.
Well, I've read and watched some of your other videos where you've had conversations with people, and heard you talk about like people who aren't necessarily anarchists or have never even been exposed to the philosophy or anything. Some of the words come with like baggage that has been placed there by the media and stuff. But I like how you come up with different words for it, like independent free thinkers and stuff like that. It's, because you might run into somebody who really truly is an independent free thinker who just hasn't been exposed to this yet, or thought of it in these terms.
Yeah, and I don't like to look at a debate as I won and you lost. That's not a proper way of looking at a debate. I think it should be a conversation, transmission of ideas, and exchange of ideas peacefully. Without any insults or attacks or slander. And basically, in any conversation, whoever gets emotional and insulted and slanderous is the loser and should exit quickly and immediately, if anything. But so I'm really, I really try to take a deep breath, calm down, and just take it step by step, very simple. And I remember I was talking to one anarchist recently, Melissa Rakovich, you might know her, and she was saying something interesting that. She's like, this taxation is theft argument, it's just so old. I'm done with it. I can't talk about it anymore. I want to move on to bigger and better things, like more important things, like how about drone strikes, in the Middle East that are killing people every day? What about that? Isn't that more important to talk about than taxation is theft? And it is, but really, if we really want to disentangle the statism in their minds, we first have to establish basics, and taxation as theft is a very basic concept that pretty much diffuses the entire notion of a government, right? How can anything be legitimate if it's based on theft? And it can't.
Right. And to go back to what Melissa was talking about with drone strikes, I would say that's the initiation of aggression, which is another basic core principle of the libertarian philosophy and the voluntarist philosophy, the non-aggression principle. It's like the golden rule of philosophy.
Right.
And she's got a really good point there. If people understood the initiation of aggression better, they would understand drone strikes better.
Well, the other reason I wouldn't want to talk about drone strikes with people or bring it up is because that's like I can imagine somebody saying, well, they did this to us, so we're just fighting back, or they look what they're doing in the Middle East and ISIS, and they're beheading people and they're evil people. Don't you think we should help those people? And so it just starts a whole back and forth where it's like, I don't know, it's like my facts against your facts. So as much as possible, I try to stay away from like real life as much as possible. I try to maintain conversation in the philosophical realm, in the conceptual realm, right? Just understand the ideas of voluntarism. We can apply it to reality. That's good too. But first you got to understand where we're coming from, the ideas. And after you do that, then everything else basically just falls into place. So I think if we go to reality immediately, they can come up with all of these excuses and justifications for why things are happening the way they're happening. You know what I mean? So that's a major reason why I don't really talk about history either, because everybody's got their own version of history. They read this history book and that history book, and like, who's to say my history book is better than your history book, right? So I think it's so important for me anyway that I focus on the philosophical realm, and that's really my strength. So,
yeah. Well, like you said, taxation is theft. That's one of those like kind of basic axioms of our understanding that we try to get across to people. And that was a really good viral meme campaign a while back.
Right.
It took off and caught a lot more steam than I thought it would.
Yeah.
And so, things like taxation is theft, conscription is slavery, war is mass murder.
Yeah.
Those are kind of like really simple axioms that I sometimes put in like hashtags and stuff on the things I share.
Right.
And a lot of people do see them, and it might plant that seed of thought, and they'll think about it later. But I've also gotten negative reactions to stuff like that because people say, oh, they're just contrived platitudes. And I'm thinking, well, they're more like spontaneous axioms that, if you apply them to the real world, they turn out to be true. You know.
And the other thing that's difficult for us, as people who try to spread ideas and start conversations, is that, we have had these conversations with so many people in the past. So it's kind of like a teacher that has taught a class, let's say for a whole semester, and they're like, all right, I taught this whole subject. They know it. Good.
Mm-hmm.
Now the next semester comes, you got to go all the way back from the beginning and teach from the beginning. So every new person, you got to go back to the basics, the beginning. All right. You can never start from where you left off and get more complex, And that's the frustrating part, I think.
Yeah. Every 6 months, there's like a new wave of fresh baby anarchists. They're ready to learn it all over again. And that's when we get to hear all over again, what
Yeah.
about the roads and stuff like that.
Yeah. So I think, the basics, the principles, is so important that we communicate those well, get those down, be calm and collected when we talk to people, and not not attack them. Just kind of probe the mind, to see why are you thinking the way you're thinking. What got you thinking? Why? Does it make sense? Is it logical? Are you thinking like that because you understand it, or because somebody told you to think that way? Or that's what your government school teacher told you to do. Which most of the time
pre-programmed reactions, and that's why unschooling is a really important thing. But also, like, adults need to kind of like decondition themselves every so often, of any kind of programming that might get in there.
Right. So tell me a little bit about your new page, Autonomous, and
All right.
and what that's about, and why you created it.
Okay, well, I created a new page called Autonomous, which basically seeks to free the mind, body, and spirit of individuals everywhere. And I think that the philosophy has a really good grasp on the physical aspects of things, and psychology has a really good grasp on the mental aspects of things. And I come at it from this spiritual angle originally, and there's a lot of overlap between those different communities. So within the different activist spheres, there's a whole lot that they have in common. And I call it autonomous as kind of a play off of anonymous, which I used to not be a part of that, but I used to identify with it, I guess, to a certain degree.
Mm-hmm.
I used to have my profile picture as the Guy Fawkes mask, but I've seen a lot of stuff that they've done recently that I don't agree with. But basically, autonomous is just a play off of that name, anonymous, and I kind of want to identify on the more compassionate, philosophical aspects of anarchy, and then also psychological things. There's a lot of different psychological techniques we can use, and I know Sterling Lujan is a lot more familiar with this, but like cognitive reframing, hypnotism, there's all kinds of ways that we can gain more conscious control over our subconscious processes. And then spirituality is something I've kind of been into for a long time. I've always done meditation and yoga. I combine Kriya Yoga with pranayama meditation. It has a lot of visualization to it. And I think that there's a lot of overlap between those different communities. It may not be all anarchists will identify this, and may not be all psychologists will identify with the stuff that me and Sterling talk about. And the spirituality, community, the spiritual community, whatever you want to call them, they're all over the place. Everything from New Age to this or that. So I'm kind of trying to just kind of create a sphere where they can all kind of participate. And that's what the Autonomous is about. I'm going to be posting all kinds of stuff that kind of brings all three of those aspects together. And I also have a page, or a group actually, called Philosophy, Spirituality, and Anarchy, where there's a lot of people from the different communities interacting with each other. And I think that the anarchists have a lot to teach the psychological and spiritual communities, but they also have a lot to teach the anarchists as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really great to see a lot of that going on, where an anarchist kind of wakes up and starts noticing the more subtle aspects of life, that they might have overlooked before, because it's the kind of thing that I don't mean to be solipsist or nihilist about it, but sometimes spiritual experiences are the kind of thing that people just have to have for themselves. There's like a quote that says the difference between religion and spirituality is that religion is believing in someone else's experience, but spirituality is having your own. And sometimes people just have to have their own version of that experience to be able to put some faith in it. And so, I think that there is a lot of room within logic and within the hard logic brain to accept more subtle spiritual things. And I think there's always like a scientific explanation for everything. We just might not know what that is yet.
Cool. Yeah. What brought to mind was, how some people talking about the difference between religion and spirituality. Luis Mises talks a little bit about that, as well as, thinking about a lot of the Christian anarchists, which I think I understand that a lot of anarchists think that's a contradiction, like being the Christian anarchist, but it's not, and I think there's a lot of more, how do you say, consistent, in terms of principle. There's a lot more consistent Christian anarchists than there are atheist. Atheist statist, right? So I would prefer to have a Christian anarchist than an atheist statist, right? Because at least, the Christian will not use the state to impose his or her beliefs onto me, right? So it's beautiful that as an anarchist, we can say that, you can have your different beliefs, and I'm not going to try to impose them upon you. And I think that's a beautiful thing. That people, I think that people need to understand, because that's basically what the state is. It's like I have my beliefs, and we all vote, and I'm going to try to use the state to impose them upon you, and you're going to try to use them to force them, impose them upon me, and let's see who wins. And it's just a violent act, and it's just it's no good. That's not how civilized people act. So I've interviewed a lot of Christian anarchists, and they're wonderful people, really intelligent, smart, and so I have come to embrace that. Even though I wasn't raised religious, I don't call myself a religious person. I call myself a spiritual person. I've studied a lot of world religions, but yeah. So yeah, I just wanted to say that Christian anarchists, awesome.
Well, yeah, statism itself is a religion.
Oh, that's
and
true
perhaps,
too. Right.
And it's perhaps the most dangerous
right,
religion.
Exactly.
Yeah. And its proponents are the most zealous, I think, of all religions.
Yes.
You can sometimes hear the zeal in the way a statist speaks sometimes. And I used to hear it in myself when I was a minarchist, when I would talk about the Constitution, and how it was like the savior, But yeah, I mean, Spooner got me over that. 45 minutes or an hour or so of Lysander Spooner, the Constitution of No Authority.
Right.
And it was done like that.
The other thing that I noticed with voluntarists, a lot of them, is they're pretty humble people, because I think you have to be humble if you're willing to put your previously held beliefs onto the altar of logic and reason, and really examine them and say, do I believe this because I was told to believe this, or because it makes sense, right? And if you come across conflicting arguments, would you just shoo them away because they don't agree with your previously held beliefs, or are you really going to consider them because you want to be logically consistent? And I think a lot of anarchists exhibit that quality.
Yeah, I've always been open to the idea that I could be wrong. And there's been a lot of times, like my first 6 months as an anarchist, I was proven wrong hundreds of times, because I still brought all out of this baggage and fallacies and different ways of thinking that had to be hashed out with these debates. So I spent about 6 months to a year, my first year, just debating things and being proven wrong over and over again. and I'm still open to the idea that I could be wrong about anything I say. But when I do hear logic and reason, I know it when I hear it, and I'm like, okay, you're right.
Yeah, and so I think the philosophy of voluntarism and anarchy is based. It must be based in humility, because it's basically saying that I don't know what's good for you, so how can I tell you how to live your life, or vote for an institution or empower an institution that will try to govern you against your will, right? I don't know how you should live your life. Most people don't even know how they should live their own lives. So how do they expect to know how their neighbor should live their lives? And so I think, yeah, these philosophies are based in humility, and it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and what you just said it really is profound, because when people think about it, like, those like taxation is theft, voting is violence. That's one that I didn't get right away. I'm like, voting is violence? How is that possible? But then once I realized that, you're enforcing the will of the majority over a minority who didn't consent to such, things. And then at some point, a gun, there's the threat of force, which, becomes actual force. And the initiators of that force are the ones in the wrong. And it took me a really long time to figure that out. But yeah, voting is violence, basically.
Yeah, that was one of the first articles I wrote back in 2014. Oh no, 2013 maybe. Entitled "Voting is Violence" for the Daily Anarchist website. And it's. I mean, some people, I think Spooner makes the argument like voting can be self-defense, but yeah, I mean,
Rothbard made that argument too.
Was it Rothbard? Yeah.
Well, they both made that same argument.
Yeah, I would never. If somebody asked me, Danilo, what's the best way to improve the world? I wouldn't say vote libertarian.
No.
It's like I have a whole list of things. Raise your kids peacefully. Unschool, start a business, treat your friends with respect. Treat your everyone you meet with respect. Agorism, all these things go down the line. Voting is. I wouldn't even say it. I wouldn't even mention it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say that it's just it's more it's both it's all three of these things. It's a waste of time. It's ineffective, and the case could be made it's immoral.
Yeah, voting is violence. Don't vote for others. Govern yourself. So I think everyone should run for governor of themselves.
So
I would vote for them.
So on that note, I assume you saw the entirety of the Hillary Trump debate.
I saw not 1 second of it.
Exactly. Well, you know what? I failed, but that's not because I wanted to see it, but that's because I live in a house of people that want to see it, and so just simply me walking through the house, I catch. I'm listening. I can't close my ears. That's so hard. I mean, I guess I could, but I didn't. So I caught the poisonous words of these political predators seeping through my ears, and it was painful. I'm telling you. I mean, and my wife was watching it. Like my wife, she agrees with me on a lot of the stuff I say, but she was still watching it, and maybe out of interest, I don't know, fascination. But it's like. I compared it to like if you're really good at something, I don't know, take something that I don't know what you're really good at, like really good, like I love chess, I love piano, I do, and so if you're really expert in something and you see somebody doing a piss poor job of it, it's painful to watch, and so that's kind of how it is. It's like I'm so immersed in this stuff that when I just see a politician speak, it's like it's like, I don't know, maybe it's in a way it's like he's like a snake charmer trying to hypnotize you and trying to mesmerize your mind and get you to just take his words on face value. But oh man, yeah, really painful, and I did not watch it, and well, not intentionally.
Well, you probably could have tried to count the fallacies.
Yeah,
that's the other thing. I don't know if you're a drinking person, but you could just, every time there's a fallacy, you could just take a drink. There's appeal to emotion, take a drink. Appeal to authority, take a drink.
Well, I don't drink, so like maybe I would drink kombucha. Maybe that do that.
There you go.
But yeah, no, that's one painful thing that I will not subject myself to. That's torture in my mind. It's like I don't know if you saw the movie. What's it called? Clockwork Orange. Did you see that movie?
I think I have. It's a long time ago, but
a part of the movie where they're like forcing his eyes open to watch a movie. Yeah, forcing anarchists to watch politicians talk. That would be torture. Produce irreparable trauma and brain damage.
Right. Yeah, I don't know like if you could actually program or brainwash an anarchist back into a statist. To me, it seems to be a one-way road. People that become anarchists after having been statists, they don't usually go back.
Yes, that's very true. It's often a one-way street. Although you do hear people claim to say that I once used to be an anarchist and now I'm a minarchist. Like for example, Austin Peterson, right? And then but
Well,
then you really have to question like, wait a minute.
I know a lot of people who say they're anarchists, but they're either saying it to be edgy or they're saying it to fit in,
Right.
you know, or maybe they want to be an anarchist and they just don't know yet what that means.
Maybe. Yeah. But yeah, gotta have compassion even for those people. Try to see where you're coming from with that.
Hmm.
Because when I talk about this to some people that I meet, at maybe new Facebook friends, and they're like, all right, so you hate the government, all right, so I'll get my guns, you get your gun, we'll go down to Washington D.C. and when do we start the revolution? And I'm like, no, hold on, stop, no, that's not what I'm about.
Oh, evolution, not revolution.
Exactly.
That's just the initiation of more force.
Exactly.
And force begets force, and we need to diffuse that whole downward spiral. So yeah, I'm all about peaceful, nonviolent resistance.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not about initiating aggression against anyone.
Mm-hmm.
So like any call for a violent revolution, I will not take part in. But
So you're saying I'm not going to see you at the next Black Lives Matter protest?
not necessarily, no. And,
Okay.
and if I am there, it's probably going to be to try to convince them that
I
it's
know,
not
right?
that it's not black versus white, it's blue versus you.
It's like, why are you like destroying this shop owner's window and stealing his merchandise? Is that going to fix any problem in your neighborhood in some way, or just destroy property that this guy built up after a decade or two?
Right. And it's like, what's Walmart got to do with it?
Yeah. Yeah.
This is where I think, Cell 411 and other kinds of things like private security and dispute resolution organizations would come in really handy, because it's the monopoly on force that the police kind of take advantage of. And there's no repercussion, there's no recourse, when they initiate that sort of force against otherwise peaceful people. And so I think that, private security and Cell 411, things like that, could make the police obsolete. And I think that's more of the answer than it is to block traffic or smash Walmart windows.
Yep, they got these Black Lives Matter. We got to send them to the Broken Fallacy window Wikipedia entry or something. Some videos.
Yeah. The broken window fallacy.
Right. Broken window fallacy. Why... going down to Washington D.C. with your guns and everything, it doesn't work. It doesn't matter. If you remove all the politicians, if you remove all of the the tanks and the soldiers and the military, and the IRS, it doesn't matter. That's the symptom of the problem. That's not the problem itself. The problem is not in Washington D.C. Right? The problem is in the minds of the people who believe that this is necessary for a civilized society, right? To believe that they are necessary, because if you just remove them and the people still believe, they have this irrational belief in their mind, this status belief, they'll just create it again. It will come back again, right? That's, you got to get at the root, right? As Henry David Thoreau, for every 1,000 people hacking at the branches, there's one hacking at the root.
Yeah, I think that's just the belief in illegitimate authority and the lack of belief in your own authority. Like, you are the highest authority in your life, and no one else should have authority over you. And I think once people stop, illegitimate authority is authority that you don't consent to. So once people kind of get wise to that game and become responsible for their own actions, I think, and it's not very hard to do. That's the kind of thing that the world could wake up and realize in a matter of a year or so.
Right.
But that's really all that's really necessary, I think.
Yeah, I remember what I was going to say is that you mentioned Cell 411, and then I was also going to add Viper Threat Management Center, the business model.
Yeah.
Dale Brown, man.
Detroit.
Doing some
Detroit
awesome stuff.
is doing wonderful things. And I think that's they cut off the government funding to Detroit and it started falling apart. And the free market figured out its own way to get those things, finished. Like, you don't necessarily need police to patrol, but sometimes you need to contract for security. Like, either someone will, keep your house from getting robbed, or show up when you call them to diffuse a potentially violent situation. But it's like the firefighters don't roll around patrolling looking for fires. It's just like, why do the cops have to patrol looking for problems?
Right.
So
yeah, we got to figure out who's the aggressor. Is it the guy driving on the highway with a broken taillight, or is it the guy threatening his life for not pulling over because he has a broken taillight?
Exactly.
Who's the aggressor? But anyway, so wonderful conversation. So if there's anything that you want to finish up with, any last message you have for my listeners before we go?
Well, yeah, just follow me on my Facebook page. Everything I post is public. So we don't necessarily have to be friends, but I do accept a lot more friend requests now than I used to. So you can find me on my Facebook page, as well as a number of libertarian and voluntarist-oriented Facebook pages that I help admin for, like anarcho-consciousness, psychological anarchists, counter-establishment economics, the pull-out method, the iconoclast, and also autonomous. And I'm also an admin of a group called Philosophy, Spirituality, and Anarchy. So you could try to join that group and get involved in the discussions there. And I guess you always ask for a quote, right?
Well, you beat me to it. All right, go ahead. No, usually when people don't follow my show and then they expect that I'm going to say bye, and I say give me your favorite quote, and they're like, "Damn, you stumped me."
Well, you usually do put people on the spot, and it's hard to come up with a really good quote right there on the spot.
Right.
But my quote that I'm going to leave us with is the same one I had on Seeds, and it is by a guy whose name I can't pronounce. Is it Etienne de La Boetie, or how do you say that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's it.
So my quote is, "Resolve to serve no more, and you are at once freed. I do not ask that you place hands upon the tyrant to topple him over, but simply that you support him no longer. Then you will behold him like a great colossus whose pedestal has been pulled away, fall of his own weight, and break into pieces." And that's the essence of the pull-out method, or agorism. Instead of going through government, we can just pull out and avoid government and go around it.
Yeah, basically the same Buckminster Fuller quote, right? You don't have to you don't have to destroy a paradigm, just make it obsolete by creating something better.
Yes, make it obsolete by creating a new one. Yes.
Yeah, beautiful. I love it. That's the way. That's the peaceful way. Make it obsolete like Blockbuster was made obsolete. Exactly. I love it. Awesome conversation, Shane. Thank you very much for coming on. Really appreciate it. So if anyone wants to help out my show, you can do so through the links, PayPal, Bitcoin, or Patreon. The links are below. That's patreon.com/Peaceful Anarchism. $1 show is all I ask. These shows are for free because I love spreading ideas, educating people. But, my time is not free, right? There's always other things I can be doing. There's opportunity cost to everything we do when you learn about economics. So if you enjoy the show, you find value, please trade value for value and support me and make my wife happy. I love it. So basically, you vote with your dollars, right? That's the only voting I support is voting with your dollars, or you can vote with your feet. But in this case, vote with your dollars because we're on the internet. But yeah,
or your bitcoins,
or your Bitcoin. Right? Good point. Vote with your vote with your currency or your money. Right? Good point. Gotta change that slogan there. Cool. So you can also go on my website and click on the affiliate links. I'll have some books that we might have mentioned, and you can I get a small commission when you make your purchases through there at no extra cost to you. So helps me do what I do best, which is interview fascinating people like Shane here. So thanks a lot for all the support, everyone. So this is Peaceful Anarchism on the Voluntary Virtues Network, and theseedsofliberty.com and theconsciousresistance.com. Wishing everyone have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye.
Cell 411 is a free app for Android and iOS that replaces government-controlled 911. Cell 411 allows you to preset a group of friends or private organizations to show up in any emergency. Cell 411 is a nightmare for the state because it proves their so-called services aren't needed. Cell 411 has had thousands of installs, and of course it's covered by the BIPCOT no government license. Cell 411 because your friends won't shoot you when you're in trouble. Without the government, who would build the emergency services? You and Cell 411. Get it today at getcell411.com. That's getcell411.com.